With Occupy Wall Street protests constantly gaining momentum in the US and spreading right across the globe, more and more people are beginning to wake up to the reality of corporate greed, which is ruining the global economy. A top 10 tax evaders list has been published by the Washington Times, and so I wonder how many people actually register this criminality, or if the figures are just too big to comprehend. My name is Miles Dyer, it is Thursday, October 13th, and you are listening to Podcast 376. Hello everyone, thank you for tuning in. This is a brand new series of Podcast 376. Something I've been thinking about for a very, very long time. I keep having these inner battles saying, if I have issues to talk about, why not make a video about it? And then there are lots of issues that I don't think are worthy of a video, but then can I keep the momentum doing a podcast on a regular basis? But with everything going on in the world at the moment, I think this is a great format to use, and more importantly, it gives you a platform to give your thoughts on issues, because this isn't just about what I think, it's about me posing a question and together us coming to perhaps new conclusions and learning off each other. So if you do have any comments or questions you'd like discussed on future episodes of Podcast 376, you can tweet them at Podcast 376 on Twitter. Or you can message me on Facebook, facebook.com/Blade376. Well, as the intro suggested, I was talking about tax evasion today. Because the interesting thing with the Wall Street protests happening at the moment, and anyone who doesn't know what is going on in America, tens of thousands of people took to the streets in New York protesting against corporate greed. The fact that mainstream media is funded by huge corporations, and so are the government, who are supposed to be representing the people. So the slogan is the 99%, we are the 99%. Statistics show that I think it's about the top 400 richest Americans own more money than 150 million Americans, and with unemployment constantly going up, jobs are supposed to be created by the banks. It's why we've been bailing them out. Taxpayers' money has been bailing out the banks, because then with not failing, they then have lots of capital they can lend out for small businesses to start up. But this hasn't been happening, because bankers have realised that by keeping the money and not lending it out, they make money on interest. And I think at the moment banks in the US are making at least $40 billion a year on interest, and there's no incentive to lend it out. So they were going to fail. They were paying out huge bonuses. We bailed them out because they were going to fail. And so they keep paying bonuses, not worrying about screwing up again, because as far as they're concerned, the government will keep protecting them. And this relates to what I want to talk about today, because the banks were bailed out by the taxpayer. It was by law, because we have to pay our taxes. And in the UK right now, I'm not sure how it is everywhere else in the world, but if you're self-employed, you have to fill out tax forms and submit it by the end of the month, it being October. And so I've been doing this. I was only self-employed for a few months last year, but still I have to do it, or else I will receive huge fines. Or possibly imprisonment if I am seen to be avoiding it. But the Washington Times published a day or two ago the top 10 tax evaders. They call it the Wall of Shame. And they've listed it in alphabetical order, I guess, because they didn't want any of them to sort of have some pride in getting to number one. But I'm just going to go through them now and then ask for your response to this, because I guess it's like with the monetary system as a whole anyway. They keep printing out more and more money. The Bank of England last week printed another £75 billion to go into the money supply. This is money printed out of thin air. Well, I say printed, it was digitally added. Add some zeros to the computers. But when you hear about all these bailout packages and all that, the number gets so huge that you become sort of desensitized to it, don't you? But when it's, the average middle class person trying to pay their taxes, every £100 matters, or $100. But anyway, the list. Bank of America is first, who took 336 billion in bailouts in 2009. That's of taxpayers' money. But in 2010, a year later, flush with $4.4 trillion in profits, but it paid no taxes. No taxes out of the 4.4 billion in profits after we've already paid them $336 billion in bailout. And they have 115 offshore tax havens. Number 2, Boeing, who are responsible for the Boeing 767, all the aircraft, just received $35 billion from our government, or the American government, to build 179 airborne tankers. But despite nearly $10 billion in profits from 2008 to 2010, it too paid no taxes due to tax havens. Citicorp took $476 billion from the bailout. $476 billion in bailout. And they made loads of profits in 2010. It paid no taxes thanks to 427. That's almost one for each $1 billion in subsidies, thanks to, yes, you've guessed it, tax havens. Exxon, or Mobil, received huge oil subsidies from the government and earned $45 billion in 2009, but paid no taxes, thanks for stashing profits in places like the Bahamas and Singapore. GE have been there. Google utilises a technique that moves most of its income through Ireland and Netherlands to Bermuda, making its tax rate 2.3%. And then billions they've got sitting there. It's just incredible. Mega pharmaceuticals, Merck, earned $9 billion in profits and paid no taxes in 2010. News Corporation, Rupert Murdoch, who's been under the heat with all the hacking scandals, who own Fox News, etc., that's been painting horrible pictures about the protesters, wondering what on earth are they protesting about. But listen here, they avoid paying American taxes through its 152 subsidies in tax havens from the British Virgin Islands to Hong Kong. Verizon, despite making $24.2 billion in pre-tax US income, paid no taxes and actually claimed a federal refund of $1.3 billion for the last 2 years. Okay, thanks to offshore things. And number 10, Wells Fargo, the fourth largest bank in the US, which took $107 billion in bailouts, wrote off all its losses by acquiring Wachovia, thus paying no taxes. Yet its CEO earned $5.6 million in cash for his salary and $13 million in stock. How does this make you feel? Because I always feel myself that when you talk about these figures, people will always be like, yeah, but that's the way it is, that's how capitalism works. But having that attitude is what allows these sort of things to happen. And it's criminal. It's absolutely criminal, because the average hard-working person on the street, in the middle class, etc., is having to get by in life, paying the mortgage, paying for healthcare if they're in the States, paying for education for their kids, just trying to make a decent living. And if you don't pay your taxes, which have bailed out these banks, so yeah, let's just say it how it is. Banks have screwed up the economy, and so the taxpayer, hard-working people, have to pay tax by law, which has bailed these banks out and has led to more bonuses being paid, more than could be conceived by thousands of people put together. And this is happening all over the world, and you got all these offshore havens. It's a global economy at the end of the day. And when the protesters say we want 90% tax on the rich, this gets to a whole nother issue. It's not going to work, because there will always be loopholes. The higher you put the tax rate, the more that these companies and banks will be willing to pay their accountants to, evade paying such. And the politicians are getting paid by the corporations. The media is being paid by the rich, and it's just absurd. And it's so absurd. That's why I think a lot of people don't get it, and people will just continue to shrug it off and go, well, that's the way it is. That's the way it is. people who protest are just people that haven't, gone out and got jobs. And this rhetoric is being reinforced by the mainstream media, like News Corp with Fox News, where they're evading tax, and the political elite. Herman Cain, who is hoping to be the Republican nomination for being president of 2012, said the other day, I've got the quote here actually, "I don't have facts to back this up, but I happen to believe that these demonstrations, as in Occupy Wall Street, are planned and orchestrated to distract from the failed policies of the Obama administration. Don't blame Wall Street. Don't blame the big banks. If you don't have a job and you're not rich, blame yourself." And it's outrageous. It's just a constant cycle, isn't it? And, this topic has sort of digressed from the original issue of tax evasion. But, there's a reason why these people protesting are angry. And there's a reason why anger is spreading, because people are waking up from this, delusion, thinking everything is just the way it is, and realising, actually, you know what? It is unacceptable and things need to change. So I guess I'll leave today's podcast with a few questions. Firstly, do you pay tax? What are your experiences with tax? What do you make of the list that I read out? Does it change how you feel from before? Is it what you already knew? Is it what you kind of expect? Because I guess that's another part of the whole, that's just the way it is. That's just the way life is, that the rich will always be able to evade. So you just got to make do. And then also the question of, do you feel the protesters of Occupy Wall Street or Occupy Together around the world have a strong case? And do you support them or are you against them? Submit all your thoughts, comments to @Podcast376 on Twitter, or send it to me on Facebook.com/Blade376. And I will speak to you soon with another Podcast 376. Thank you.